Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Faith Abercrombie. Thank you for joining us. The Maricopa County election audit continues today after taking a break since May 14th due to scheduling conflicts with graduation ceremonies. The ballot counting machines were returned to the Veterans Memorial Coliseum floor this weekend. Experts are saying the audit has not followed standard recounting procedures. They say that usually members of both political parties are able to observe the counting process, but that isn't the case with this recount. On Friday, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs said the voting machines have been compromised and will not be used in future elections.
They're not following any type of best practices for any type of audit. And there are very specific best practices that you would want to have in place in terms of procedures for an election audit. And they're not following any of those. And
2 audits have already taken place to recount the Maricopa County ballots. People across the country are feeling the impacts of fuel prices raising on the East Coast. Price hikes hit at least 10 eastern states in response to a cyber attack that targeted a fuel pipeline. Gas prices per gallon increased anywhere from 5 cents to 12 cents. Although gas prices did not significantly change in Arizona, other goods and service prices are going up. Brad Ball, the president of Roadmasters Driving School, explains that the cost of fuel compounding with the lack of truck drivers is leading to increased prices.
Every penny increase in gas means millions of dollars in fuel costs to transportation companies. Ultimately, those costs have to be passed on to the consumer. So not only is the shortage of drivers going to impact fuel and prices of groceries and medicine and all kinds of things that get shipped, but also the cost of fuel will increase the costs of the trucking companies, and that's also going to increase again the cost to ship it. So it's sort of like a problem that keeps compounding on itself.
According to the research from the American Trucking Association, the industry will need to hire nearly 1 million skilled drivers in the next 10 years to keep up with demand. Truck drivers are responsible for moving 71% of all freight in the USA. This shortage of drivers, coupled with increased fuel prices in the East, will lead to increased delivery prices over the next few years. Turning now to some sports news, the Suns beat the Lakers in the playoffs yesterday. This was their first playoffs win in 11 years, beating the Lakers 99-90. But there was some drama on the court. Some players had to be separated and Suns player Cameron Payne was ejected. Coach Monty Williams warned there would be more moments like this between these competitive teams. Suns player Chris Paul suffered a shoulder injury in the second half, but says that he will be good to play the next game tomorrow night.
His words to me was, he was okay and he'll be okay going forward. But he was pretty sore when he came back. But him playing today gave us a lot of juice, a lot of energy. It was inspirational to watch him out there giving his all on both ends of the floor.
Phil Mickelson now holds a new golf record. He is the oldest winner of a major PGA tournament at the age of 50. Mickelson won the 2021 PGA Championship at Kiowa Island's Ocean Course in the final round. The win is his 6th major title after a long career. Mickelson's last win at PGA Championship was 16 years ago at the 2005 tournament. The previous owner of the oldest title belonged to Julius Boros, but Phil Mickelson beat that record by 2 years. Boros held this record back in 1968 when he won the PGA Championship at the age of 48. Going off to college to further your education can be exciting, but it may come with a hefty price tag. According to Forbes, about 66% of graduates from public universities who have borrowed money leave school with student loan debt. I talked to one student from Queen Creek High School who decided that she would not be a part of the statistic.
A word not in graduating senior Vivian Palaio's vocabulary.
Yeah, if I wasn't going to get a full ride, I wasn't going to go to ASU.
Debt.
I put the phone on speakerphone because it was my sister and my mom. And I put the phone on speaker and I was like, Mom, she just offered me a position in the program. And then I told her, yes, I accept it. And then we all just started crying out of excitement of it.
Pelayo did not think a 4-year college after high school graduation was in the plans until receiving a spot in Arizona State University's leadership program with a $40,000 scholarship.
I felt like everything was finally coming together in a circle.
Her leadership experience started at an early age. Really early.
I was my 2nd grade student council treasurer.
And she continued to develop those leadership skills, serving as student body vice president her senior year. She was nominated by her high school staff for this award.
There's about 25 slots that they have for freshman students. Our school was able to nominate her.
The scholarships didn't stop there for Pelayo. She was also awarded $25,000 from the Taco Bell Foundation.
And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, I'm just saying hi to my coworkers. And I walk in and the owner of the restaurant holding a big $25,000 check. And I look around and I just see more and more family around the room, and they're all popping confetti cannons.
Pelayo plans to major in civil engineering and is looking forward to these next steps in her academic career.
And Sydney, my coworker, was like, that's her. And I was like, that's me. A new beginning, new opportunities, and it's just, education has always been super important in my life and in my family's life. And so I'll always look up to gaining new experiences through going to college.
After her bachelor's at Arizona State University, Vivian Pelayo hopes to get her master's in architecture. Her goal is to help create sustainable and temporary housing in Arizona. 2020 saw some incredible challenges for both teachers and students. We'll take a look back at some stories that showed both struggle and triumph in learning.
Cronkite News provides students at ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism with the opportunity to gain real-world experience in the newsroom. At Cronkite News, our students produce professional content for audiences by taking on all roles, whether they be reporting, anchoring, producing, or studio production. Each department gives students first-hand professional newsroom experience. For more information, visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship Program, or AEF, is a program for K-12 educators across the country. Reporter Julia Sandor found out how this program is going to help students here in Arizona.
These fellows are chosen from a pool of accomplished STEM teachers, which includes science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of those is from here in the Valley.
15 educators from across the country were chosen to go to D.C., where they are spending 11 months in federal agencies and congressional offices. They are applying their knowledge to national education programs and policies. Pinnacle High School teacher Michael Vargas was one of the few people chosen.
A couple years ago, we found out there's only 159 physics teachers left in the state of Arizona. That number has improved by maybe 15 since then. That's a real problem.
Vargas is working in the Department of Defense, where he is working on manufacturing technology.
Additive manufacturing, 3D printing. There's all these things out there that, isn't really on people's radars that we're going to need to have qualified, trained folks to be able to do. And, I really believe that, that is a very worthy mission that needs to be accomplished.
And while he is working at the Pentagon, fellow Rachel Benzoni is working on Capitol Hill for Arizona Representative Raul Grijalva.
So whether it's elementary school teachers that are being given STEM credentials, so they're able and ready to teach science, not just as science, but as STEM and as kind of a transdisciplinary practice, but also to help our middle school teachers. So they're starting to build that disciplinary practice into our kids.
They give the congressmen their perspectives and act as a voice for teachers, students, and parents everywhere. They are also learning how to develop strategic education plans and design new elements for national STEM programs. Their plans for when they return are to facilitate and accelerate STEM pathways in the education system.
And with only a few months left of the fellowship program, these educators will return home to their states and implement their new STEM education plans. In the Broadcast Center, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
It's been a year since students were taken out of the classroom and moved to virtual learning environments due to the pandemic. Now, there's concern the switch is causing some to fall behind. Jenna De La Torre explains what's being done to try to help students catch up.
While schools and teachers have done their best to help students transition back into the classroom, data shows students have fallen behind since the start of the pandemic. This has sparked conversation among students, parents, and administrators. How do we get them back on track? Over the past year, students across the nation have had to adjust to remote learning. Here in Arizona, some students have been out of the physical classroom for almost a year now. And according to Governor Doug Ducey, the students' grades show the damaging impact the pandemic has had.
I don't mean to sound dramatic, but this has been, like, for everyone, such a hard year.
Dawn Schmidt is a high school history teacher who has been teaching her students virtually. Schmidt says she's done everything she can to help students during this time, but is still fearful of where students may stand academically after the pandemic.
Until we have like an actual benchmark to see, or a baseline to see, okay, where are these kids? What do we actually need to do for them? Then that's going to be another story.
Expect more. Arizona Senior Vice President and Chief Impact Officer Aaron Hart has been working with education administrators and students across the state and feels that with statewide testing, schools will be able to get a more accurate idea as to what their students need.
That's going to give us our first indication at a statewide level of how our students are doing, where those learning gaps are.
The AZM2, previously known as the Arizona Merit Test, will be administered to 3rd through 10th graders. The testing will begin in April, according to an executive order signed by Governor Doug Ducey. From there, Ducey hopes that the data collected will be helpful in constructing further plans to best help the individual student get back on track with their academics.
There are lots of options that they can consider for how to best, help students catch up. Summer school is one of those options. Other options might be like additional tutoring or one-on-one interventions, or bring in an additional staff to help. I guess the point is there are a lot of different options that schools could consider. And I think it's best left up to schools and school districts to make those decisions because they know their students best. Even if we did summer school, which could be a great solution for many schools and students, there will likely need to be continued interventions and supports provided to students so that they can get back on grade level. So, this might even take a couple of years for students to really get back on track.
Schmidt is hopeful that with the proper resources and help, students will get back on track both inside the classroom and mentally.
The other piece of this is I think sometimes we forget that even in this crazy world, kids have learned other skills that aren't measurable by tests.
The Arizona Department of Education is working with school districts on how to safely bring students to administer. The testing window has also expanded from 4 to 6 weeks to better accommodate students. In the Broadcast Center, Jenna De La Torre, Cronkite News.
The Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship Program, or AEF, is a program for K-12 educators across the country. Reporter Julia Sandor found out how this program is going to help students here in Arizona.
These fellows are chosen from a pool of accomplished STEM teachers, which includes science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of those is from here in the Valley.
15 educators from across the country were chosen to go to D.C., where they are spending 11 months in federal agencies and congressional offices. They are applying their knowledge to national education programs and policies. Pinnacle High School teacher Michael Vargas was one of the few people chosen.
A couple years ago, we found out there's only 159 physics teachers left in the state of Arizona. That number has improved by maybe 15 since then. That's a real problem.
Vargas is working in the Department of Defense, where he is working on manufacturing technology.
Additive manufacturing, 3D printing, there's all these things out there that, isn't really on people's radars that we're going to need to have qualified, trained folks to be able to do. And, I really believe that, that is a very worthy mission that needs to be accomplished.
And while he is working at the Pentagon, fellow Rachel Benzoni is working on Capitol Hill for Arizona Representative Raul Grijalva.
So whether it's elementary school teachers that are being given STEM credentials, so they're able and ready to teach science, not just as science, but as STEM and as kind of a transdisciplinary practice, but also to help our middle school teachers. So they're starting to build that disciplinary practice into our kids.
They give the congressmen their perspectives and act as a voice for teachers, students, and parents everywhere. They're also learning how to develop strategic education plans and design new elements for national STEM programs. Their plans for when they return are to facilitate and accelerate STEM pathways in the education system.
And with only a few months left of the fellowship program, these educators will return home to their states and implement their new STEM education plans. In the Broadcast Center, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
The Maricopa County Library District is expanding internet access for public use through their new Chromebook and hotspot lending system. This initiative was made possible through the Coronavirus and Relief and Economic Security, or CARES Act. Cronkite News reporter Caitlin Keenahan walks us through what this means for Maricopa County cardholders.
The Connected at Your Library initiative seeks to provide internet services to all who need it. Whether a person is 7 years old or 70, internet is an essential part of daily life, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where many events, classes, and programs have taken a virtual route.
This program has been existing in the library since 2019, but just at our Gila Bend branch. And we expanded slightly to 3 other branches in the fall of 2020.
Its success was notable, which led the initiative to launch at all 18 Maricopa County libraries this morning. Maricopa County Library Deputy Director Erin McFarland says this expansion helps bridge the digital divide in the county.
I think people talked about it before the pandemic, but it became so much more obvious once the pandemic hit and people didn't have access to libraries, didn't have access to schools. That social safety net of where people could connect was gone.
McFarland gave examples of how this technological expansion will make a huge difference for families.
Lots of people lost their jobs throughout the pandemic. Most job applications are only available online these days. So if someone didn't have access to a computer or internet connection, they weren't able to apply for those jobs.
Each library will receive 14 Chromebooks and hotspots. Each device can be checked out for 3 weeks at a time with an option for renewal. In order to check out the technology, you will need to be a cardholder with the Maricopa County Library District. You can sign up for free at mcldaz.org. In the Broadcast Center, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.
Well, that's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next on Break It Down, the new normal for athletes during the pandemic. Stay tuned. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.